In this video, I want to demonstrate for you how to make the color changes needed to complete color scheme number 3 of my Highline Wristlet Keychain. This will be a brief video just highlighting those color changes. All right, let's get started. For this one, my color A will be this red yarn, my color B will be this dark blue yarn, and my color C will be the white yarn. If you look at color scheme number 3, you'll find that the foundation chain row and row 1 will be in color B. Row 2 will be in color C. Row 3 will be in color A. And then we'll finish off again in color B. So I have worked the pattern through the end of row 1. I've done my foundation chain row and I crocheted back across it to the end of the row, and here I am at the end. I've created my final single crochet stitch, and I'm going to finish off in this color B and change to color C. To do that, I have my final stitch made. I'm going to chain 1 and pull up about 2 or 3 inches of yarn, and then I'm going to tighten down that chain pretty good so it's nice and tight there, and snip off our yarn at the top of the loop, and then pull out color B and set that aside. And this is a good time to weave in this color. Anytime you're making color changes and you have an end that you need to weave in, you always want to weave in that end into the same color yarn so that you don't have multicolored yarns peeking through on your project. Okay, so I'm just doing a quick weave here, back and forth through the top of the stitches, pulling that end through, straightening it out, and it pretty much disappeared for me. Okay, so here's where we ended row 1. I'm turning my work. Now I'm looking at the back side of row 1. With color C, we're going to make a slip knot on our hook. And then we're going to pull that tight down to the barrel of the hook so it's not a big loose loop on our hook, but just a loop that slides back and forth easily, but it's not too loose. Okay, then to start row 2, I'm going to pull our work here to locate stitch number 1. You can see the V. You can see the V across the top of the row. We're going to work into stitch number 1. We're going to insert our hook. We're going to be making a standing single crochet stitch. So we have that slip knot on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, and keep this tension a little bit tight here, and grabbing onto the bottom of your 2 loops, you'll yarn over and pull through both of those loops. And you don't want this first loop to get too loose on there, otherwise it'll look a little sloppy. So by holding on to the bottom of those loops and pulling down and pulling your yarn a little tight when you make that first single crochet, that keeps that nice and neat. And so the rest of row 2 will simply be single crochets all the way across. All right, I am at the end of row 2. I've got my last stitch here with a loop on my hook. And again, since we're making our color change to color A, we're going to chain 1, pull up that loop, tighten it down with our fingernail, and go ahead and snip off your yarn, pulling out the end. There we have it. Now I'm going to stop and I'm going to weave my ends of row 2 right into the top of these stitches, just like I did with row 1, so that we hide that white yarn right within its own color and don't mix it in with the next color when we're weaving. So it's easiest just to do it at this stage right now instead of waiting until the project's finished, because it's a little harder to weave into the same color when it's buried underneath another color. Okay, so you'll weave those ends in on both sides, right into the top of those stitches, and then we'll meet back up to join color A and start row 3. My ends are all woven in, and this is where we ended row 2. And we're going to flip our work again. And now we're going to join once again with a slip knot on our hook, and we're going to join this time with a slip stitch. So we're just working into that very first stitch of the row, pulling a loop through, and then using our fingers, just pulling that loop right through the one that's already there on our hook. And then you want to pull that down tight enough so again it's not sloppy and loose, okay? So now we're going to be working our cone stitches right into the same first stitch that we joined to, and then that stitch 2 rows below. So we're yarning over, working into the first stitch right where we joined, pulling up that loop, yarning over, down 2 rows below in the first stitch, pulling up another loop nice and high, and pulling through all 5 loops on our hook. One more time, into the next stitch, and 2 rows below, pulling through all 5. And there is the cone stitches for row number 3. Just finished off row 3. This is the end here. I've already tightened that down and snipped off the end of the yarn. Just like before, I'm going to weave the tail through the top of the red stitches on this end, and then I'm also going to weave the tail from the beginning of the row through the top of the red stitches so that we're all set for row 4. I've got the right side of our keychain facing me, and again I'm going to locate that first stitch. I've got the slip knot on my hook, nice and snug, not too loose, and we're going to work into the top of that first stitch with that slip knot on our hook, keeping our tension fairly taut, yarning over and pulling up a loop, and then grabbing the bottom of those 2 loops to keep it nice and tight, and yarning over and pulling through both of those to create that standing single crochet, and then just continuing on working a single crochet in each stitch across. You can see here I've got a nice little patriotic theme going, and I will complete mine out just as I would in the main Highline Wristlet Keychain video, where I show you how to join the ends and add the hook. Okay, I hope these little tips helped with those color changes, and enjoy the pattern. Thanks.